Welcome to a new episode of Fertilizer Matters. I'm Denise, covering the Asia nitrogen and ammonia markets, here with my colleague Dana, who is covering the global nitrogen market. Today, we're both in Singapore and we're digging into the Caprolactam market and its deep ties to ammonia and ammonium sulfate.
Thank you, Denise. It's really nice to be here in Singapore. And yeah, we've been both tracking this market, and it's wild to see how much has changed, especially with China's aggressive expansion.
So let's start at the very beginning. Dana, what do you make of the shift in China's caprolactam position over the last 2 decades?
Well, it's one of the clearest examples of state-backed industrial transformation. Between 2000 and 2011, China's caprolactam imports grew by 160%, reaching nearly 700,000 tons a year. And at that time, domestic capacity was just 500,000 tons. But here's what is astonishing. By 2024, China's capacity hit 7.2 million tons per year, growing at a 17.5% compound annual growth rate from 2011.
Wow, so this flipped China from a net importer to a net exporter, right?
Exactly. Since around 2014, imports haven't even exceeded 270,000 tons per year. With vertically integrated players like Sinopec, Hengjie, and Ubei Sanning, they've been able to push prices down while scaling up.
Very interesting. So do you think that this level of vertical integration has been the key to their cost advantage?
Absolutely. When you're managing benzene procurement, ammonia feed, and downstream nylon in one structure, you can optimize margins, hedge volatility, and undercut global peers.
I see. So what has been the impact on the rest of the world?
Well, outside China, caprolactam capacity stayed relatively flat from 2000 to 2010. But once the Chinese supply flooded the market, global prices started falling fast. And that's why we haven't seen many new non-Chinese caprolactam projects.
Right. The economics just doesn't justify new builds.
Indeed, and as you also cover the ammonia market here in Asia, let's bring in another angle to our discussion. A lot of people forget how central it is to caprolactam. Would you agree that ammonia and benzene are the two major cost levers here?
Definitely. Together, they drive the lion's share of the variable cost. Sulfuric acid or sulfur contributes a bit, but not nearly as much.
And just to clarify, we also net off the credit from ammonium sulfate, like the byproduct?
Yep, that's standard. It helps, but it doesn't save you when feedstock prices swing hard, which they often do. Most of the traded ammonia market currently also deals with supplying ammonia to chemical users, especially in East Asia. Globally, around 2/3 of industrial ammonia demand come from the caprolactam and acrylonitrile industry, with the rest from other chemical productions such as nitric acid or TDI-MDI production. And now with ammonia being positioned as a clean energy carrier, especially in Japan and Korea, it's about to get even more complex. You're going to have industrial demand for ammonia plateauing while energy-driven demand accelerates. That's going to put real pressure on supply, especially for low-carbon ammonia.
This takes me to another question. How do you measure profitability?
So the key metric is the premium over benzene, or also called POB. It's basically the margin you get from upgrading benzene into caprolactam.
And what's considered a healthy POB?
Good question. The long-term global average is around $995 per ton, and anything over $1,000 per ton is generally needed to incentivize production long-term. And since 2020, POB has been suppressed to around $500 per ton. In late 2023, it even turned negative for a short stretch.
That's brutal. What about East Asia specifically?
And in East Asia, the trend's been even worse. Apart from a brief window in late 2021, producers haven't had much relief. Chemical industrial producers in East Asia have been suffering from falling margins. The recent announcement of the closure of plants in Korea, Japan, and Thailand all point to this issue. South Korea's Capro Corporation, which used to be the only manufacturer of caprolactam in Korea, has stopped productions in April 2023 with no set date for restart. Japan's Ubei has also announced that it will curtail all of its caprolactam production in Japan and Thailand by 2027. citing declining profitability with little prospect of recovery as its main reason. So the natural question becomes, why would anyone build a new caprolactam plant outside of China right now?
Exactly. The math just doesn't work. Between the price swings, margin compression, and China's cost leadership, it's nearly impossible to justify greenfield investment in the West or Japan. So this leaves us with a point that in the short to medium term, it will be a China-dominated market unless there's a major shift in trade policy, environmental standards, or sudden demand spike. Otherwise, China will remain the global caprolactam anchor.
Yes, and with China being the biggest caprolactam producer, it is only natural that they would also be the largest exporter of ammonium sulphate, which is typically a byproduct from caprolactam production. China's AMSO exports hit a record high of 17.1 million tons in 2024, boosted by domestic capacity expansions and strong seasonal demand from key buyers. This is only expected to continue to increase in the coming years as caprolactam-grade AMSO production in other countries like Thailand decreases.
So talking about China and ammonium sulfate, what are the latest trends in the AMSO market?
Well, so far AMSO markets in China has been relatively firm, mostly supported by the international Euro market, increased demand from seasonal markets like Thailand and the Philippines, as well as traders looking to take positions in the market. Supply-wise, we understand that most southern producers in China are sold out for April loading cargoes, with limited volumes left for May loading, while northern and river producers still have some availability for April cargoes. Offers we heard last week were mostly in the 140 to 147 per ton FOB for standard caprolactam grade AMSO. But there are a couple of Chinese domestic AMSO plants that are scheduled to undergo turnarounds in April to May. This is expected to tighten supply availability in the region, which is once again supporting suppliers' firmer price sentiments. So how are you seeing demand from other regions too?
In Brazil, the biggest market for ammonium sulfate has seen a pickup in demand last week, with at least 50,000 tons of compacted AMSO being sold in the low $170 CFR for April loading. And now most offers have moved up to around $180 per ton CFR, especially after what we have seen in the international urea prices. Let's see this week if this trend will be sustained and if we'll see higher levels achieved.
Sure. Thank you, Dana, for coming here to Singapore to chat with us. That's it for this episode of Fertilizer Matters. So if you're in the caprolactam, ammonia, or ammonium sulfate world, we hope this helped connect the dots. Till next time, goodbye.